All right, guys, how's it going? Builder friends, welcome. We got a really good hour-long chat about to start right now. Get your computers all set up. Get your keyboards out. We're looking like the Brady Bunch here. You're probably seeing several heads. You probably know everybody, but let me introduce who's on this live chat first. And then the four of us are gonna talk about a few different things about our businesses, how we've been affected, what we've done specifically to set ourselves up in the future. And we got a really good broad builder panel for you here of guys working around the country. And then we're also going to have at least 20, 30 minutes of Q&A time. So if you would, go in the bottom of your screen and you'll see a couple buttons that'll say, one of them will say chat and one of them will say Q&A. If you need to chat, that's typically where you're going to send a private message, but Q&A is really where I'm going to be looking to say, hey, Jim with, something homes in Oklahoma, or Amy in California has a question. Here's the questions and we'll answer those. But first, let me introduce everybody. I'm not sure what order they're on your screen, but John, give us a wave. I'll introduce John first. John Hourihan. John is Vintage Builders in basically Boston. John does mainly new construction, a little bit of renovation work. John and I have been friends for many years, and you probably know him from either his Instagram feed, which is incredible, or he's a part of the Modern Craftsman podcast with a couple other fantastic builders up in that area. So, John, really appreciate you joining us today and telling us about your business in Boston. And then next up is Jason Tanenbaum. Give us a wave, Jason. Jason is an old friend of mine. Actually, I hired Jason how many years ago now? 20 years ago, Jason? 21 years ago, when Jason and I both worked for a national production builder. I was doing college recruiting after I'd been a production superintendent for a long time. And so Jason and I go way back. And he's the co-owner of Grainda Builders down in Charlotte, North Carolina, basically. And they do a mix like me of both new construction and some renovation work, remodel work. And then on the bottom of my screen, I'm not sure where he is on yours with the big white earmuffs, is Bryan Uhler. Bryan is a really interesting builder because he's one of the few second generation builders that I know. His parents started the company and he and his brother are taking it over and have taken it over. Bryan is Pioneer Builders basically outside of Seattle. They're in a suburb area. And Bryan runs on Instagram, Pioneer Builders. And his brother, you may have seen his feed, his brother has written for JLC for a long time and runs Awesome Framers. That's his brother, Tim. So I really appreciate you guys joining us today. Let's someone comment on Q&A if you would check that out, Bryan, about the screen. If you'd take a look at that. Behind the scenes, Bryan and my team is kind of running the Wizard of Oz role. Hey, first, guys, I'd love to hear from each one of you for just a couple of minutes about market conditions in your area. What's it like? What are other builders saying? I also am really curious to know from your areas, what are your prospects saying to you? Whether it's people that have already signed a contract but haven't started, or who are about to sign a contract. And I'll answer that too. But let's start with you, John, up in Boston. Give us a couple minutes of the general temperature in Boston, so to speak. John, you're on mute. Oh, hey, one quick thing, John, before I go on. I forgot to thank our sponsor, by the way.
There you
Sorry,
go.
guys. Huge thanks to Marvin. Marvin reached out to John and I first and said, hey, I think this would be really a valuable thing for our industry for y'all to get together. And then we pulled in Bryan and Jason. And so this has nothing to do with Windows. And yet Marvin was willing to sponsor this, put all the tech behind this, and get this thing going. So huge thanks to Marvin for doing that. And none of us work for Marvin. We're not spokesmen. We are not. None of what we're going to say is anything from their PR department or or in any way should go back to them. So this is all our personal opinions. All right, John, take it away, brother.
Yeah, I was jokingly saying it's like low 60s, partly cloudy, but no, I mean we've only had one client that was in the pre-construction phase that kind of pumped the brakes. It was a small kitchen bath reno that wasn't anything extensive, but everything that we've had in the pipeline has stayed in the pipeline and hasn't really moved. For what I've seen in the different level of market that we have, like we're doing custom homes and some specs and some renovations, but my framers, painters, all those guys and landscapers are all trying to pull work together. They call us probably every day going, hey, do you want to do anything? Want me to do a bluestone patio? Anything you guys need? They're just trying to cover payroll. So
Wow.
it is hitting people even in our small market that we have in our bubble, even our group of subs that we have. So every day I get calls.
Wow, that's interesting, John. How about getting paid on your current jobs? Have you had any holdups on that, or any issues with banks or people that are paying cash that haven't had the money to pay you?
It's been kind of a run of the gamut. We've had clients that are great about paying, have always been great. They're not going through banks, is what I've kind of sniffed out. And then everyone that is going through the bank, there was a bit of a pause where the bank appraisers didn't want to go out or didn't know if they were supposed to go out, if they were essential or not. So they would just kind of pump the brakes and pause and not go out and do their home inspection of what that draw was. So we saw a delay of about 3 weeks about getting paid from some of those projects. So it did hit us, and now it's trying to get back on track slowly. And I'm trying to be okay with that. But at this time, everyone's keeping things tight. Our subs are keeping things tight. We're trying to keep things tight with our clients, not like running up a tab, we'd say, and paying our guys because they need the cash flow, all of them.
Yeah, yeah. How about John? How about answering the question of what do you foresee in the next couple of weeks or months ahead in terms of prospects and people actually signing a contract? Do you have anybody in the pipeline who was just about to or is getting close on signing a contract?
We signed 2 in the last, I want to say, month. So that didn't, but I mean, that was kind
Congrats.
of, thank
That's
you. But
awesome, man.
yeah, it was stuff that was in motion a little bit. We weren't just meeting for the first time, but we've had a
Right.
few calls in the last month that we've vetted and went out and saw, because you don't want to go see everybody right now. You want to, even more so, you really want to not delegate, but sift through who's eligible, because you don't want to expose yourself to a new home and people
Yeah.
or bring whatever I have in. I guess I'm very cognizant of that. Gloves, cover up, mask, all that. But no, I mean, we haven't seen much of a slowdown on that. It's been pretty consistent. And, but what I found is a lot of architects have reached out and to see if we have any work for them.
Oh, that's interesting.
We got a call and I was like, oh, all excited. I'm like, they got something for us. And they were just, kind of a wellness check and checking out to see if we had anything in the pipeline for them. So I think everyone's kind of feeling out the water.
That's interesting. All right. Thanks for the Boston update. Let's go to Jason down in Charlotte, North Carolina. What's the temperature in Charlotte, Jason? Answer the same questions that John was answering for us.
Yeah, early on, I think there was more of a gut reaction where things immediately shifted when all of a sudden, it just happened so quick. Schools shut down, stay-at-home orders went throughout Charlotte initially, and then the rest of the state. And the projects we had in the pipeline, they all pretty much said, "Oh, wait, pump the brakes." And then as we're starting to get a little bit more used to the normal reality out there, we're starting to see things move a little bit more, especially the projects that are more need-based as opposed to want-based. So an outdoor living project might be on hold, but hey, we need the new house. We've spent 2 years working through with the architect, and now it's time to do something. We're seeing those projects that are starting to move forward. So a little bit of a mixed bag from the sales side of things. I guess looking ahead, one of my concerns is in the future, because right now everybody's busy with the trades, construction, things like that. As long as it's not an occupied home, we're busy. We're still scheduling guys in houses, maybe not as many, and trying to be smarter with things like disinfectants and common sense stuff. But a concern moving forward is going to be, hey, the phone's not ringing as much right now. So what is third and fourth quarter this year going to look like? And even further, what's 2021 going to be like from the pipeline, the sales pipeline?
Yeah.
So,
Bryan, let's transfer to you up in Washington, and then I'll answer about Texas. What's the temperature up there? How about projects, availability, labor, some of those kinds of things?
Yeah, we're in kind of a unique situation because we were shut down about a month ago. So construction, for us, we were considered non-essential. Not necessarily plumbers, electricians, things like that. There was a whole, categories. But for us, being a residential spec builder, there were no loopholes for us to continue working. So the guys immediately got on unemployment. We kept really good communication before that.
How many guys do you have doing work on your jobs, Bryan?
We got 3 full-time guys, Timmy, and then he's got Kyle and Shane, and we do all our foundations, framing, and siding. And then my brother-in-law works for us about 3 days a week, and he does like everything under the sun, punch list, you name it, he does it. So, and then the other thing that makes us unique is right now we're exclusively spec. And I'm wondering if Timmy said something.
He did. He's calling it.
Nice.
He's saying, "Hey, my name is Big T." Actually, by the way, I prefer that. But that's pretty funny.
Well, so we were really fortunate because we sold a rental like maybe 3 weeks before we were shut down. And then we had 2 specs under contract to close, like right as it seemed like it was going to happen. So it was, touch and go, trying to hold them together. They did. Funds dispersed. So we were in a really good spot just to pull the plug, hold tight. And then just this week, we got started working again. But instead of ramping back up to full time with all the guys, they're just working 3 days a week. I'm not having any of the subs come in for the time being. Our houses tend to be higher priced per square foot, but they sell when the house is done. But at framing stage, nobody's going to be able to see it or understand why they cost more. So we're keeping the product, but not taking so much of our capital that's pretty liquid, putting it into cost of goods sold. So we're just being slow, but keeping things moving forward.
That's smart, Bryan. It's funny you mentioned that. I hadn't thought about builders like you that have a spec that's finished or nearly finished and trying to sell that spec in this market. I'm sure there's some people that are affected by that. If you're a builder in that situation, I'd love for you to throw a comment up in the chat bar about that. The last time we hit a big recession, and I don't know that this is going to be a big recession, but in 2008, I guess it was, I finished a big spec project. It's the last spec I've ever done because I got caught with my pants down. And, I was in framing basically when the kind of national economy hit the toilet. And it took me until 2011 to sell that house. I sat on it for 3 years, and I took a bath to the tune of about $250,000. Add in some interest and some personal credit card debt, and I was in debt in 2011 over $300,000. I had a wife and 2 young kids. I was in real bad shape. I've talked about this on the Modern Craftsman podcast. I don't want to go into the whole story, but it does. And I've stopped doing specs since. I won't do that again. It took me until 2015 to pay that debt off. We jokingly called that debt Chuck at my office. It was the employee we paid every month, but sucked, and we couldn't fire him. And finally, I fired Chuck in 2015. We had a small party at my office because I wasn't paying $7,000 a month for the employee that we didn't have. It was a nice pay raise for me too at the time. But it's something to think about in these times. Be cautious about specs and how you do them. Let me give you a quick update on Texas, and then we'll move on. I want to talk about workplace safety measures and what you guys have done. I think that's something that will interest everybody. But in Texas, I'm in Austin and Dallas and Houston. Those are huge markets. I'm typically in the upper end of the market, so my clients haven't changed anything. I'm really thankful about that. Although, interestingly enough, I have gotten a prospect and a current client asking me about softening prices and whether that will affect them, meaning will they get their house done cheaper. We're going to mention that in a minute. or I'm going to ask these guys about that in a minute. But I've got one really exciting house in my pipeline that we're expecting to sign a contract in 2 weeks ish, and it's looking like that's going to happen, and that's a huge blessing to have that one come through, and for them not to say, oh, we're going to put it on hold. I had another really good remodel on the other hand that's around $1 million or so on a pretty decent sized remodel project that put it on hold. I think that come summertime, when they realize everything's okay, they'll bring it back, and so we'll probably get that job again, but it's a mixed bag is really the point of what I'm saying for Texas. Let's talk about workplace safety measures, guys. I think this is something that would interest everybody. John, let's start with you again. Just we'll kind of keep that same circle. What have you done in terms of workplace safety that you think could be helpful for the builders or modelers, contractors listening out there?
Yeah, so Boston and Cambridge, two towns, two cities we work in, they've mandated that we have cover-ups, masks, a hand washing station outside, and that we're keeping 10 or less people on site. That includes us as managers, and then obviously 6 feet apart. Outside in the burbs and the smaller towns, we're actually self-instituting the exact same rules. So we're basically, going over stuff, and then also checking in with a lot of subs that are over 50. I was going to say 45, but I'm 40. I'm like, I'm not doing that. So 45 to see if they want to have the house to themselves. I'm also emailing inspectors ahead of time saying, because I usually like to do a pre-inspection before I close out a project, and just so they can put eyes on it. It's been a year since we did our last inspection, and and they've said, hey, we're not going to do that. We're not going to hold you up, but we want to have the house completely empty, cleaned, ready for move in, for that occupancy walk through. So just trying to be, I want to say, a couple weeks in advance on what you'd want to do before. Like, you'd call and get your inspection, it would be a 2-day process. Now I'm doing that 3 weeks to 4 weeks ahead of time, just kind of making sure that I'm on people's radar in case things change.
Super smart.
It's been a moving target. First it was groups of 250, then it was 100, then it was 20. We instituted the 20 people rule, then dropped it to 10. But yeah, we went on Amazon or to the local, supplier and got, hand wash stations, just the slop sinks, hooked them up to the hose. Some of them don't have heat, some do. Something very simple like that, and instituted that so people have the ability to clean up. So that's what we've been doing.
That's good, man. Those hand wash stations, I don't know who told me about that, but we bought the last few that were available at the home center. Yeah. And those have worked great. And shockingly, those haven't been a problem at all. Like, guys are really using them. I've noticed throughout the workday randomly. Whereas the masks, on the other hand, there's a bunch of people that are like, they don't want to wear a mask. It's like asking them to, put this mud on your face or something they just really wouldn't want to do. Whereas the hand washing, for some reason, it hasn't been, I haven't had to tell anybody. It's like, I see guys washing their hands all the time over there. So that's been good. How about you, Jason? What have you guys done in terms of workplace safety that could be helpful?
A lot of similar things that John was saying. And John, I got to say, that's a brilliant idea to reach out to some of the subs that are maybe over 50 and say, hey, you want the house to themselves? I love that idea. So we'll be now implementing that one as well. But, just limiting the amount of guys who are in the house, spreading out the construction schedule. We're not going into any occupied homes, just to help avoid contamination. We're burning through disinfectant, whether it's 409 or Lysol or whatever we can find, to spray down surfaces as much as possible. So a lot of those same things. And I even saw a question from Kyle over here on the side, who said, is there a need for more tools for less contamination or cross-contamination? And I would say absolutely. Sharing tools and limiting sharing tools, I think, is one of those things we don't think of so often, because 6 different people use the same saw, and if they wipe their nose, grab the saw, and then wipe their nose again, that's an easy way to transmit. So I think there's a need for that moving forward.
Yeah, that's smart. How about you, Bryan? You got several guys on your crew that are doing it, between Big T and the other guys. What have you guys done in terms of workplace safety that could be helpful for our audience to hear?
State of Washington has their own requirements. So I would say know what your requirements are. Here it would be
That's
labor and
smart.
industries that could penalize us. If people just decide to be cowboys and you lose your license, it's not worth the $500 in PPE. So some things I
Smart.
didn't hear mentioned, but that are required here is taking everybody's temperature every morning.
Interesting. And how are you
Having
doing that? And what device you're using for that?
So I went to a number of places. Timmy went.
There's a joke there, yes, but let's not take that joke. Take the high road, Brian.
I appreciate it. That's not what I was laughing at, but I see where you're going there.
Okay, all right, good.
I think what they're going to end up using is the one that we've got for our kids, because we can't find a touchless thermometer anywhere. So it'll be one of those that just goes on the forehead. And then my wife bought like, I don't know, 500 of those little alcohol wipes. You know, they just come in small packets, so you could just get them real cheap, inexpensive, get a bunch of them and just wipe it down between. But for the most part, it'll just be the three guys that have to make sure, you know, there's protocols for cleaning of the honey bucket a certain number of times per day, professionally a certain number of times per week. I had one kind of a good experience. Our plumber needed to go back to one of our jobs, and he gave me a call because he was going to be wiping down all the surfaces that he had touched, and he wanted to make sure that the cleaning agent that he was using would be okay with the finishes. So
how cool is that?
Yeah, if you've got callbacks or something, you have to think in terms of that as well, because things have to be fixed, and you want your trades on board as well.
Could you share his number in the chat bar? I'd like to give him a call, see if he's available for work in my area.
Yeah,
that is one trade that is really hard to find. Is a good plumber. That is for sure. That's helpful, Brian. Thank you. I've put a bunch of my workplace safety stuff on social media, but the biggest win for us was those all-in-one kits that we bought at the home center. That's a slop sink. I feel like hand washing is huge. My wife's a physician, and a quick plug for her. She started a YouTube channel a month or so ago, and started making videos about COVID just to kind of get rid of some of the misinformation. She's got 25,000 subs in a month. And she has a video on COVID that has 4 million views. So obviously people are getting on and are interested in finding out more than just what NBC Nightly News has to say. And she preaches this all the time. Look, it's all about washing your hands. Masks are really only somewhat helpful, and you end up touching your face more with masks. So she realizes that the CDC is saying everyone should wear them, and we want to follow our local authorities on that. But hand washing is really the best thing for you. So anything you can do to keep your hands as clean as possible is going to help lessen the spread of this virus. Let's move on, guys, and talk about something I think that would be really helpful, which is now that business has slowed a little bit, what are some ways that we can market ourselves? And then conversely, what are some ways that we can set, if there are other things besides marketing, but what are some ways that you can set yourself up for success when this pandemic dies down? John, let me start with you. You've done an amazing job of marketing yourself. A quick plug for John. If you're not familiar with John's Instagram feed, John has two feeds, one for vintage builders and then one, John, is it Here's Johnny?
Here's Johnny H, like The Shining.
Here's Johnny H. I met John originally when you worked for another builder a few years ago, and he was basically running their social feed and was kind of the face of the company. I would guess that, well, I don't want to get into that. I'm sorry. Let me say that John's done an amazing job of setting himself up at his new company, and I've seen him on just a few short years now build some incredible houses. And like what I was looking at yesterday, you got some incredible stuff coming up. John, give us some tips from your success, how others could maybe use this downtime to learn from you, or what are you doing, or what can you share with us about marketing yourself?
We do a lot with social media, like you said, is just telling our story daily. So it's evolving, and we're just telling people how it goes. So potential clients, I feel they may not pull the trigger tomorrow. I feel like a lot of clients that are, big ticket projects, like we're not doing sheds, nothing wrong with that, but it's not like an impulse thing. People are going to watch us for maybe even a year before they really need to dive into a project with us. So it's just showing how we evolve with that, you know, the restraints that the government's putting on us in states, but also what we're going to do going forward. Like we have a couple of remodels that we're doing for clients that are already on the books, and we're going to, you know, put in, you know, air scrubbers, stuff like that, and really work on partitioning ourselves off from the rest of the house. Even though we're not working in that space, we don't want to contaminate that. And that means having air scrubbers in the house, negative air, and also thinking about like HVAC systems we put in the future, like we talked about before. Do we do electrostatic filters? Do we offer that to a client? The worst fear I have as a builder is not giving them enough information, not educating them, where someone else comes along that's a friend, that's an architect or a builder, and says, hey, did they offer this to you? Like, this is an option. And they say no. That's like my biggest fear, is that I didn't do enough research to dive in deep enough to give my clients every option they have. So marketing wise, I mean, we are going to finally finish the website, because there's a little bit of, I feel like everything's a little slower. So I have a little bit of time left in a day, maybe an hour, to kind of dig into that. And then really show that we haven't slowed down and we're easily adapting to this situation. Because I don't think what's going to happen is it's going to blow over. It's going to be with us for years to come, and it shouldn't slow us down, and it shouldn't affect our subs, our employees, or our clients.
John, you said something I want to point out. You said about your social media that it's telling your story daily, and then you said it's the long game with clients. I think one of your superpowers is that your personality comes through in your social media. People get to know you and like you, and my guess is when people have a meeting with you, they already feel like you're their friend, even though they've never met you in person before. Is that true?
It's so true. I mean, I've been in this business long enough where we used to bring your portfolio in like a little 3-ring binder, and you'd have to flip that open to everybody. Now it's like you've skipped the first 2 months of a meeting, and you're just stepping off and you're going through absolute what they want, their needs, and they feel comfortable with you. There's no courting anymore. You know, they've done that without having to commit to you on their own terms, which I love.
That's huge, John. That's, if I could say anything about what I've done on YouTube, I would say it's allowed me to gain trust with potential clients. Not every client. A lot of clients could give two rats that I'm on YouTube, but some clients, even if they don't continue to watch it, they do their research before the meeting. And I remember real early on, like I started on YouTube in 2008. And a year in, I was doing it like, is this worth it? You know, I'm getting 50 views on a video, but I would go to meetings regularly, and someone, usually the husband, because he was the nerd, would do his Google research on me because the architect recommended me. And he would meet me like I was his long lost friend. Oh my gosh, man, it's so great to meet you. You know, I watched all your videos on window reviews and flashing details. And, you know, automatically they liked me because they felt like they knew me. And they felt like I was smart and I had some measure of integrity. And I just like you said, John, we skipped 2 months of get to know you. And am I someone that you would trust, or am I that shady contractor that's trying to get them to sign on the dotted line? So anyone who's watching this, I would say, forget about the numbers. John has a giant Instagram feed, but my guess is this was just as successful when John had 5 or 10,000 or 1,500 people that were watching him on Instagram, because he's putting himself out there and he's taking that risk. And
don't get me wrong,
get to know him.
I still get that whole I'm not good enough feeling, like when I put knowledge out there that I know that I don't know everything. So there's that stigma where in the back of my mind is like, should I be putting this out there? But if I tell my story that I know that works for me, it might affect you in a good way. But Matt, one of the things I did want to talk about was I've seen a change in how we have to do design, like clients selecting tile. Like there is a massive lead time to, instead of going to the showroom and kind of just walking through that and seeing that, and having to have all that stuff delivered to the house, go over it. And then we've been shifting gears and having renderings done of all the interiors with that tile selection to kind of paint that picture without having to go to the showroom or wait till we're closer to the tile stage. And that's been something that we've had to make an adjustment for in the last couple of weeks.
That's a big change, the whole showroom thing. You're right, John.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Hey, let me slide over to Jason down in Charlotte. Jason, tell me about any thoughts that you have on marketing yourself and gaining business in this kind of changing climate. What does the future hold? Any thoughts on that, Jason?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is some of the opportunity that this has created. Um, let's face it, we've never dealt with this. We're all trying to figure this out as we go. And I think the world's going to be a different place when we come out of this pandemic, or I don't even know if we're going to come out of it, or is this going to be something that's just part of our daily lives? And with that change, we obviously have to adapt. And as part of that adaptation, people are going to need construction projects. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity with that, whether it's say a restaurant owner, that now has 50% seating capacity, and they're going to have to ramp up their takeout business, which, and geez, I drove by a restaurant the other day, they had a folding table sitting outside. Well, at some point, they're going to need to cut a hole in the side of their building and have a dedicated space for walk-up orders. So there's construction opportunities there.
I agree.
I know my wife is going to strangle someone because the kids are all too close and we have one of those open floor plans. And so, are we
no more open floor plans?
Our houses, Matt, you're going to have to redo your 70s remodel and go back to the 70s, quarantine off all the rooms. But, just home offices and, maybe sanitation stations and garages. I think the list is endless depending on how we come out of this. And there's a lot of opportunity for, not just builders, but also the tradesmen.
It's interesting. There could be a whole business to market yourself as a restaurant retrofit contractor. That's never, the term's never been heard before.
Right.
Hey, Bryan, I'd like to hear your take on pressure on pricing, either from clients to you or from us to the subs. What's your take on that with everything that's going on?
Well, first, if I can just highlight that Jason is in a homemade built treehouse, and I think everybody should really appreciate that that's what's going on there.
Maybe
that's
what
he's going to
get into.
Give us a tour, Jason. Show us on the webcam where you are.
Show the treehouse. I don't know if you can see much. Hey,
pretty nice treehouse.
Yeah, that's what happens when the builder comes home with extra parts and pieces.
So. Yes, I love it.
So, yeah, my background is finance and accounting and job costing. So I still do basically all of our bookkeeping, payroll, accounts receivable, payables, what have you. And because of that, I've got about 20 years of transactional knowledge in my brain. So you just track costs over time. But there's a balance because you just can't forecast what's going to happen. I mean, you're watching oil bouncing around every day. But having said that, you have to be able to go, well, we have to have materials. So right before the shutdown, we bought close to a whole house of lumber for the guys. And I took a gamble or a risk because I didn't know if prices were going to go up, like say mills start shutting down, supply becomes tight, or is there going to be no demand and prices are going to fall? And the decision I made was I would rather have the materials for the guys so that when they can get back to work, we can continue building. And as it turns out, I'm pretty sure we paid at the peak of the market, but we'll have a house. So I wasn't trying to time it. It was a decision that you make. And so I think you just have to be aware of, go in with your eyes open. And if you make that decision, know the why, and then move forward. Supply chains, that's been talked about. It hasn't materialized to my knowledge, but I had a conversation with the drywall contractor. You start thinking about getting it delivered earlier than we ordinarily would, just so we've got it. We picked up a microwave drawer just in case it wasn't going to be available. We're still at framing stage, partially plumbing stage. So just really trying to think ahead and paying attention to the numbers. And then talking to each one of the trades, we will not beat our trades down on prices. But if their input is already lower, and they can pass that along to an extent rather than them just making a higher margin, then we don't have so much pressure with our sales price at the end of the day. They're still able to, pay for their living and that kind of thing. I don't want to take away their livelihood. But at the same time, if we approach this holistically as a team, the lower the sales price, the less pressure and the larger the market is that can purchase it. So, talking to the concrete company, oil's low right now. We still have our fuel surcharge from the, mid 2000s. Can we finally get rid of the surcharge? Is concrete really going to cost the same amount? So there you go.
That's great. Yeah, those fuel surcharges, holy cow. I mean, I filled up my truck the other day for like $23 or something stupid like that, and I was really low. I was like, what world am I living? It's like the same price as when I was filling up my 70s Buick when I was in high school 25 years ago. This is 30 years ago almost. This is ridiculous. I can't even remember when gas was this low. I certainly didn't predict that. Tell me what you guys are doing, if anything, in terms of when you get home from work. Are you doing anything special to protect your families or to do anything differently for your family's protection or your personal safety, shall we say?
Yeah, you want me to jump on that, Matt?
Yeah, jump on that, Jason.
John, did I cut you off? Did you want to?
No.
Thanks for asking that question, Matt. That does kind of hit near and dear to my heart. It's when I come home, I obviously take my shoes off and then I go right to take a shower.
Do you really?
I don't know if it's psychological or not, but it's sad because my kids are like, "Oh, Daddy, give me a hug," and they've learned that, oh wait, when Daddy comes home, if he's been out, that he needs to go shower first.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a sad part of this new. I almost don't want to, give in and call this a new reality, but it's a sad part of what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just as weird as not shaking hands when you see somebody on a site.
Yes.
Like I usually shake a hand, pull them in for a hug. And now there's this, like I literally see somebody and they come towards me and I have to prevent myself from doing it. So I walk away. Same as when I get home, I'm like, what's up guys? And like change your shirt, wash your hands, take it, what you have off, and then wash up real quick. That way I can still not miss a beat.
Yeah. How about you, Bryan?
Yeah, one of the main principles in being a safety conscious company is to try to eliminate the hazard instead of using PPE as your last resort. So just not having all the trades on site limits the exposure, staying home, not going out and about too much, getting the mail less frequently. You're just not being exposed as much. And we're able to do that. So I know not everybody can, but anytime you can eliminate your exposure to a hazard, then you're not in a dangerous position.
Yeah. My wife is a physician, I mentioned earlier. She's working, she only works 1 day a week currently. But a week from next, she's working at a specific COVID clinic that's happening here at the hospital, where 5 days that week, she's working a clinic for people that are tested positive, that have other issues, whether it's COPD, emphysema, diabetes, whatever. And we've been talking about what do we do with our family safety, specifically with her knowing she's specifically going to be interacting with people that are known COVID people. And of course, her work has great PPE. She had to get fitted for a respirator when this all went down to get her specific size. I thought that was interesting. I never knew about that as an actual thing where they test with a fog and they're looking to see if you're getting this fog. I can't remember if it was in or out, but there's some real specific test to make sure it seals well in your face. I wonder if we'll get to that at some day for more than just people working in the hospital. But we've quarantined one car that she'll use that week, and she'll only drive that car and no one else will get in that car. And she's saying, look, when I'm done Friday, no one's supposed to get in that car till the following Tuesday, which will give plenty of time for anything that might be living in there to die. We're going to plan on sitting in the sun even. And she's got a real special routine for taking off clothes and that sort of thing. So if anybody's watching this who has a spouse or a family member who's on the front lines, I just want to, on our behalf, say thanks for your service. Those are some really special people. I was really saddened to hear about the doctor in New York that worked in the ER that took her own life. I can imagine that conditions in New York are crazy with working in a hospital when there's been that many deaths. On the other hand, I do want to take a measured approach as a dad of 4 kids and not get my kids all worked up that you know, mom and dad are going to die or that they're going to die. So it's an interesting balance in this world. And on another note, it's been interesting if I've taken a picture where I don't have a mask on, or you know, we're not following the most perfect PPE procedure. It's interesting. I've gotten a lot of negative comments on pictures, maybe even it's an old picture, saying, "Hey, you didn't do this or that." I think that's kind of an interesting kind of thing that's happening in our world right now. Is we're a little more free to make comments about other people, because knowing that your decision to not wear a mask could affect me. Even like in stores locally, you can't go in any store in Austin without a mask on. They'll tell you you're not coming in without a mask. It's gonna be interesting to see how that all shakes out as we kind of get back to work. Let's go answer a few of the Q&As. I've seen several real good questions on here. I want to start with one that was one of the very first ones. Nick, who's a carpenter in GC in Northern California, said he saw something on homeadvisor.com saying, hey, builders, contractors are offering a big 30% discount. And his question is, how do you guys feel about people frantically dropping their prices out of desperation? And how would that potentially affect our local market? Anyone interested in go ahead, Bryan, why don't you grab that question?
Yeah, we've dealt with that a lot. And what I would say is it's an individual company decision. If you know what your equity is, what your capital is, and you think you can write it out, every month that you have to make an interest payment is going against what profit you might have had in your budget. And eventually it's going to start eating into your capital. And then eventually you go bankrupt.
Yeah.
So if you're in that kind of a position and you know what your personal finances are and your company's finances are, and you have to, you know, cut bait, then that's what you have to do to survive. And it's not about everybody else's market. It's kind of don't have a business afterwards. That I'm not telling anybody to do that. I'm just saying, if that's where you're at, don't feel bad about it.
Yeah, obviously it's an individual decision. Me personally, we're really going to hold the line on those questions with clients. You know, we already don't have very big margins as a builder, so you know, just to throw some number out there. Let's say you charge 15%. You're a cost plus builder. You charge cost plus 15%. At the end of the day, it seems like a lot of money. Oh my gosh, that's $150,000 on $1 million build. I've seen stats on a national average of there being, you know, 1 to 2% left over as actual profit to the contractor at the back end of the deal, which means that, you know, we're talking about contractors who are doing millions of dollars in construction making $40,000 or $50,000 a year. And I can tell you, I worked for a few years for free because I had a huge debt load that I was paying off. And even in the recession, here's a quick side note. When I had 2009 or 10, I had a huge debt. I had the spec I couldn't pay off. I had a really good prospect that I was signing up for a big remodel job. And I knew he had the money, but he was really pressuring me hard on cost. At a meeting where we were going to sign on the dotted line, he said, you know, I really would like for you to reduce your fee. And honestly, I said a prayer and said, God, help me because I need this job. And I turned to him and said, yeah, you know, I really can't change my fee. I'm not making that much money on this at the end of the road. And I really want to be around for you to make sure that I can take care of you if something were to come up in the future. So I kind of need to hold that line. And he looked at me, paused for a second. It was like, you're going to sign, right? And he said, all right, let's go. And he signed it. This is like 2009 or 10. The economy was terrible. I needed that job big time. I would have cut it had he kept pressuring me, but I went with the, no, we got to hold this. And he moved forward. And, you know, I've done that a bunch since and realized that most of the time when I do that, they'll break. You just be quiet and say, you know, I'm the right guy for this job and I need to make a little bit of profit to make sure I'm around for you 5 years from now when you need me. And they get that. And I think that may be an interesting side note from this, is that we are thinking a little bit more about other people, and we're still paying our gym memberships, and we're still paying our nannies, and we're still paying maybe some people that aren't necessarily producing the same amount of work as they were a month ago.
I mean, if I could jump in there, I feel like products and processes are actually going to be slower for us. Like, we're going to have to buy more things to create the same type of execution. So for us, the margins can't change, and they shouldn't. We're still getting products where we have to do more management work to make sure we're on top of these things. And Matt, I've had a great line. It took me 24 years to come up with it when someone said, "Hey, I love the entire budget. Can we adjust your O&P?" And I said, "Yeah, we absolutely could." But we have other clients that pay it because they understand what we bring to the table. And if you want to knock that down, that will knock down the priority of this build for our company for you.
That's
So
awesome. I like that.
And honestly,
That's
I've
a
used
great
it every
response.
time that if they want to knock it down, like, okay, we'll knock it down to 10%. So we'll be here when we need to be here and when we want to be here, is what that turns into. Because we have 5, 6 other clients that are happy to pay that. They see the value, and that will let you know, not so much that they sign or don't sign, but how they react to that will tell you right there if you need to walk away and they're not your client. I know
Yeah,
you're at
totally,
that,
John.
that stage, but you need to make that pull then and not a year from now.
And
Jason, I want to hear what you have to say on this one.
Yeah, just one little thing. I mean, all those are perfect points, but just in support of that, our industry is a relatively low margin industry. We should never apologize for whether it's 15%, 18%, 20%, because the reality is 18% and 15% are equal to a bad tip. So
That's right.
you're going to go build your multi-million-dollar or even $150 project for a bad tip. So
That's right.
Costs money to create what we create.
That's right. For the next 10 to 12 years of liability as well, if anything goes on.
Lifetime of liability.
Yeah,
as long
pretty
as they're
much.
in the project, it's, we want them to give us a call.
Yeah. Hey, there's a question that was posed that Jason actually answered, but I think would be worthy to talk about real fast. Has anyone attempted sales meetings via Zoom? And if so, do you have any tips for the crew on selling via Zoom? Jason, you want to take that first, and then I'd love to hear what John and Bryan have to say on that too.
So the first thing, I just learned what Zoom is like a month ago.
True, I didn't know that word 6 weeks ago.
I was like, Zoom means go fast, right? You need to move in quickly. So I'm learning with. I would like to think a lot of people are learning too, but the big thing for us is you can never, or at least in my experience, I've never been able to close a deal, if you will. I've never been able to completely sell a project, whether it's over the phone, over email, and Zoom is going to fall right into that same category. So what I try to focus on when I finish a meeting is I try to close on the next meeting, at least until I'm in a face-to-face opportunity or something close to a face-to-face opportunity, even if it's with 6 foot distancing and you hand the packet of paper on the table or the island and you back away. But for Zoom for us has worked pretty well. I had a handful of meetings to where able to meet with the client, talk through some stuff, do some screen sharing, look at some plans and move the project forward. But again, not try to close it, not try to finalize the meeting over Zoom, but instead set that next appointment, whether it be a site visit or maybe the next Zoom meeting, till eventually when do I sign the contract?
That's a great call. Bryan or Johnny, you guys have any thoughts on Zoom meeting sales calls?
I just have something that's kind of related. I still think face-to-face whenever possible there's so much advantage to that when you're first gaining a relationship. So we've had 2 emails in the last week with people kind of sniffing around for a custom. If I can meet with them on site, especially one who seems to already have his property and maintain social distance, I kind of want to look at the lay of the land anyway, get a feel for them and start building that relationship. Subsequent to that, I think using Zoom for those who are busy or were busy, once that relationship has already been established, then I think we're going to use this media of communication a lot more. But I had already done that in the past. with a customer for Skype, using that in the past. So it's nothing new. But just something related to that is doing our quarterly taxes this year. I didn't have to go in person or send my wife to drop off the thumb drive with the data file. We did it all electronically. She mailed over the forms. So I think we're going to find even more ways to streamline some elements of our business so we can take less time for the things that are a little bit more mundane or rote. But when it comes to building a custom home, for me personally, I just think it's such a almost a tactile thing. If I can somehow figure out how to see him in person, that's what I like to do.
Yeah, I would agree, Brian. Hey, we got a great question submitted by Neil Donnelly, and we touched a little bit on this, but Neil says, hey guys, do you have any advice on how to navigate through this being a builder that really specializes in home renovation? I'm assuming that means with people living in the home, not move out renovations. Our work involves working on existing properties, and basically the door has been slammed shut. No new leads. Let me take that first, Neil, because I've been thinking about this a little bit. I actually have a prospect for a new build that's very sensitive. She has some kids that have some mold allergies in particular, but she's asked us to potentially do some work in her existing home, and beyond just COVID issues, I'm thinking, gosh, if we work in our existing home, I'd want to make sure that we're taking every precaution to make sure that her kids, were well cared for, especially from an indoor air quality standpoint for her, but certainly with COVID as well. And my thought would be, Neil, your existing jobs that you have going, if you could show how you are taking really good precautions on those jobs, and if you have some existing social media, utilizing that to say, hey, we're the contractor that really cares and really gets it, man, that would go a long ways to elevating it. And you might even take yourself to the top of the pile and all of a sudden get new and better and more expensive work that you didn't even expect, because the current person in that position, let's say who's been in business 20 years longer than you, isn't taking the amount of caution and safety and care that you are. And I'd be willing to bet that if you're doing some really top-notch things when it comes to air scrubbing, cleaning, cordoning off, protecting, worker safety, that in your town, in your area, that news would spread really quickly. And if people could see that, oh man, these guys are incredible, like they really are doing it right when it comes to not only worker safety, but my family's safety, you may be surprised. There may be some people that go, I didn't even know that was possible. I just assumed construction workers didn't care and would be sloppy or messy, or that my house would be a junk pile. And I certainly didn't want that in the middle of this, but they had the money, they wanted to do it, and maybe they're going to do it now that they would see that. You guys have any other thoughts on that?
I mean, I would reach out to like tile distributors, cabinet companies that are in your area, and let them know what kind of due diligence you're doing to make products happen. They might have products where other contractors have stuff on hold because they haven't had an uptick in what they're going to do. If you can jump ahead of that curve, like Matt said, and say you're going to implement these things, that might give you work that is sitting in a window just holding, that you might want, whether it's painting. I don't know exactly the scope of work you're doing, but find out what that is and go to the suppliers and go to the vendors and get a feel for what's happening on their end, so that way you can find another way of getting leads.
That's great, John. Someone asked let's see, who was it? A procurement. Kyle Frame asked a question, and I'm going to just go to a specific part of that. He's you guys, or is anybody in the audience willing to share any secret sources for this place online or that place?
Hey, Matt,
we found a.
Go ahead, Brian. Is it just me, or did he cut out a little bit?
Can y'all hear me again?
We just missed the first part of, I think, the meat of the question. I'm sorry.
Can you guys hear me again or no?
Yes.
Okay, so my question really is, when it comes to PPE, I know we've all had problems finding it, and it's weird. Some days you can get it and some days you can't, depending on what it is. It seems like where I am in Texas, we're kind of back to being able to get things again.
Is that the case with y'all? And does anyone have any, and I'd throw this out for the audience too, throw it in the chat. Does anyone have any secret sources they're willing to share with this group of, 200 builders here? This or that place online, I've been able to procure this or that.
I haven't had a problem.
Good. That's good, Brian.
Yeah.
How about you,
Miss-
Jason?
I'm sorry, hit and miss for us. Sometimes you'll see some stuff, but all the canisters of disinfectant are pretty much non-existent, and God forbid if you run out of toilet paper. So
How about Lysol wipes? Have you been able to get any disinfectant wipes anywhere? That's one that I've not seen again.
no, not seen those, and not seen masks. Not seen masks or wipes.
Yeah. Like, you know what wet ones are? Do you guys use those too? They look like a coffee cup size jar that you can just pull them out of the top. I keep one or two of those in each of my vehicles. And I've had enough to kind of last me through till last week or so, or maybe the week prior. But like, you go online and it's like, you might as well be trying to find the unicorn. They're just nowhere to be found for any kind of wipe that I've been looking for anyways.
I see someone in the comments say that their Milo is making his own wipes and hand sanitizer.
Wow.
And disinfectant spray. It's pretty impressive. Send
cool.
a link.
Oh, interesting. Jeff McClellan says Ferguson Plumbing's been procuring PPE. That's pretty interesting. Nice job, Ferguson. Yeah, and I have heard about the local brewery distillery thing. Interesting enough, we had trouble at first, and one of my builder buddies sent a link out to my CBUSA group saying, hey, this random, like a Hallmark store is selling 5-gallon buckets of hand sanitizer, but you have to call them ahead of time, and it's like a drug deal. Like, they'll meet you at, midnight at the store and unlock it, and you have to hand them cash. So we bought 10 gallons. And my guy Jason, who did it for me on my crew, was like, yeah, it felt really weird going there at 3:00, no one around. And he opens the door and hands me 2 5-gallon pails of hand sanitizer. And I hand him, I forget what it was, $200 or something. It was really weird. Felt really wrong. That's funny. Christine Raymond says their local Ace has 5-gallon buckets for $100. That's cool. Brian Edgar, thermoworks.com for infrared thermometers. That's a good call. Thanks for coming, Jeff. Appreciate you guys coming. We're just about out of time, y'all. We got about 2 minutes left. I'm going to scroll through the Q&A. Do you guys have any other Q&As that you saw that I'm missing that you want to answer? I apologize for not being able to get to all the questions, y'all.
There was one question at the end about the supply chain with suppliers. It's too soon for us to know, but I'm keeping a really tight finger on the pulse of that.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've locked in all my appliances, put the deposit down, so we own everything in the warehouse that for our next 3 builds, and then we're keeping an eye on Kohler. I know Sub-Zero and Bach shut down their manufacturing, and so did Marvin's got a 2-week delay right now. So it's all good. It's just how do you plan ahead and set those expectations? What you don't want to have right now is you guys get back to work, you go full throttle, and then a month from now you can't order, nothing that you order is coming in. And then there's this second pause that happens. That's what I'm not freaking out about, but preparing for.
Yeah.
Is that secondary pause.
And that does bring up a good point. A quick thanks to Marvin for putting all this together. One of the things that I've liked about Marvin over the years is how fast the turnaround time is. Their line that's the all fiberglass, which is the essentials line now, man, they turn those around quick. So even with a 2-week delay, let's say, if that's what they're saying.
This was like 2 weeks ago, so it might not be an
You're going to get that way faster than most other brands in the marketplace. And that's all custom sizes. There's no like stock size. Oh, you got to make a 36-48 window. I know, John, you and I both have used a lot of them. Brian, have you used much Marvin on your projects over the years? Jason and Brian, I'd highly recommend you check them out. And anyone listening, great company, great people.
Emily just jumped on and updated me. It's 1 week delay on the essential.
Okay, so they added 1 extra week. So now it's what, 3 to 4 weeks probably?
It's still under the competitors.
still way under the competitors. So huge thanks to Marvin putting this together. And I want to thank these guys too. These are friends of mine outside of work, and guys that I appreciate their willingness to share with. Bryan, if you're not familiar with him, get on Pioneer Builders on Instagram. He's sharing a bunch there. Bryan has a new YouTube channel as well, I believe. Bryan, do me a favor, put in the chat comment your Instagram handle and your YouTube. John, will you do the same too for both Vintage Builders and Here's Johnny H? And Jason, Grainda Builders on Instagram. And by the way, Jason and I are in a builder peer group together with about 8 other builders. That's been a huge benefit to my business personally. We're in 8 different non-competing markets. Quick plug on that as a huge benefit to my business, and having a friend like Jason I've known for a long time, who knows all of my under the covers issues at my company and my financials, and to get his wisdom on a biannual basis at our meetings, man, that's super valuable to my business.
Hey, you know mine too, so.
I do, but I won't tell anybody. Don't worry.
We all have skeletons, right?
Our secrets are safe. We sure do.
So, someone's requesting 2-hour-long discussion next time.
Yeah,
Thank you for the support.
It is hard to get it all in. That was Big T. It's hard to get it all in 1 hour. Guys, I really appreciate it. And for those of you that commented or chatted, I'm sorry if I didn't get to everything. One quick last thing I do want to mention on the Q&A, Dave West put out, he's getting custom branded masks. That is a killer idea. TAWK masks.com. I've been, you guys have John, do you have a Huber? John's got the Huber Advantech, what do they call those, buffs? Remember Survivor back in the 90s?
Yeah.
I've been wearing the heck out of mine, and I thought, I should get a Build branded buff. So I reached out to the company that those have been procured, that Huber bought those from. I'll let you know how that goes, and I'll post that on Instagram if I feel like it was a successful endeavor, so you guys could do that as well. Big thanks to everybody. Y'all have a great weekend. Be safe out there. My prayers and thoughts are with you if you're a builder, remodeler, contractor through this time. We're going to get through this, guys. We're going to be okay. And I would highly encourage you to get on the Instagram community as well. We got a bunch of great builders that are sharing their work, their stories, their tips and tricks out there on a daily basis. And that's another great way to connect with great people like Jason and Bryan and Johnny. Guys, big thanks to Marvin. And that's it. We're signing off for today's live chat. Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to y'all soon.